one of the folks that we've seen really accelerate over the pandemic, and one of the digital health unicorns that we're thrilled to have with us here today, that we really want to present as a major factor of evidence of growth of digital in life sciences and healthcare in general, is Huma. And with us here today is the Global Clinical Director, Dr. Arrash Yassaee. And Arrash, I want to welcome you to the program and really thank you for your time for joining us here today. Give the audience a 1-minute background of your journey and what you do at Huma.
Thanks, Dan. That's a very generous introduction. Good evening, everyone. Well, good evening from London, where we're joining in. My name is Arrash, and I am, as described, the Global Clinical Director of Huma, which is a global digital health company headquartered in London. And this evening, we were hoping to give you a very short synopsis about our journey and our philosophy with evidence generation in the digital health space, which I think is something we're trying to champion. I think as an industry, we can do a lot more on. And as a pediatrician and academic myself, is something that I'm particularly passionate about. So if it's all right, I was going to share a few slides to perhaps illustrate that journey, if that's okay.
That would be great. Yeah, absolutely. And hang on 1 minute. Let me just go ahead and make sure that you're co-host here so you can do that. I apologize. Backstage, backstage, stop video chat. So, yeah, why don't you continue talking? We'll work on the co-host thing while you're explaining the model.
No worries. So I think before I go into the bit about the evidence generation itself, it's probably important to speak about who we are as a company. So we as Huma, we are a global digital health company headquartered in London that have been around now for about 11 years. And over the course of those 11 years, we've worked in a number of different clinical trial areas, research areas, and care areas. We now specialize in about 6 different main disease areas, a whole host of other ones that we do individual projects in. And certainly as of this summer, we have coming up to about 2 million active users who use our remote technology, whether that's for clinical trials or whether that's for care plans. And we find that synergy between decentralized clinical trials and between care plans at home to be really valuable. Having that mix of experience has meant that we can take learning from the care space and use it to design new protocols and new types of research, but also getting that innovation from that research space has allowed us to inform what care guidelines should look like when we're talking about the digital space. And I think that synergy has allowed us to really, over the last 2 years in particular, but truthfully over the whole course of our 11 years that we've been as a company, really learn a lot about what it takes to get patients to adhere to care plans and treatments. And now it's very typical for us. In fact, we'd be disappointed if we didn't get patient adherence of over 90%. We get retention rates across the lifetime of trials or care plans of 95% or higher. And the satisfaction scores that we get in a variety of our deployments, including ones where patients have previously not particularly been best served by traditional care services, also extremely high. But that isn't something that's happened overnight. It's taken us quite a long time to do that. And a huge part of that is the fact that we have committed very early on in our journey. And truthfully, this is the reason that I was drawn to the company to go forward with a science first and an evidence first perspective. So I've seen, sorry.
Yeah, no, we can see your screen. I guess you know that there.
Oh, fine, great. As I said, we're really passionate about a evidence first and a science first approach. And if I recall correctly, there was a recent analysis done, I think over the summer, that looked at a whole range of digital health companies. And I think it identified that 46% of all digital health companies don't have a single paper, don't have a single trial that speaks to the claims that they're making or the statements that they're putting out there. We've really tried to change that narrative. The last count, I believe we have just over 35 or so peer-reviewed papers. We typically try to publish any deployment that we do that's got a relatively novel element to it. And we also publish a whole host of pieces of work around different bits about digital methodology. And I want to touch on a few of these in the course of the next 10 minutes or so. But I think I really want us to, as an industry, to be in a space where having 30 coming up to 40 publications isn't an unusual achievement. I really think that's something that we can make as business as usual. And I'm seeing now that this really is one of the things that excites a lot of the clinicians and scientists that are now coming to work for us at this organization. And I think also what's really great about it is that has allowed us to get quite a bit of recognition. And over the course of the last 2 years, whether it's institutions such as the Pre-Gallian or a lot of institutions such as in the UK where we're headquartered, have recognized and actually applauded us for a lot of the other work that we've done in research, which I think is quite nice because it is often really the difficult bit to really put your deployments and to put your research really under that scrutiny and that transparency. But I think it's something that's paying a lot of dividends. And most importantly, I think it's the right thing to do for patients and for users to have that accountability and that transparency. And what that's allowed us to do is it's allowed us to, over the course of all those millions of people who've used our platform, our solutions are in some way deployed in about 3,000 sites now over these years in these different therapeutic areas to really understand what it needs for patients to have a really pleasant user-centered design journey. And I always think about how in this day and age, so yesterday, for example, I broke my earphones. It took me about 45 seconds to order some new earphones off Amazon. I really think that is the level of ease and satisfaction that it should be if we're asking patients to engage with these digital tools. That's how easy it should be. And so over the course of all the research that we've done, the different evaluations that we've done, we've shown that using our platform, we can get patients to have sustained with no drop-off engagement for 40 or more weeks. We can get people to have satisfaction rates of, over 90%. We monitor how long it takes for people to input their health data. We typically find once a week, it takes 2.5 minutes. We have really great data on how and why people are interacting as well, because we do a whole lot of qualitative work. And I think one of the most exciting things that we've recently done and published in collaboration with the University of Cambridge is understanding how and why people take part in these digital methodologies. So a piece of work that we started with them almost back in 2020 now was to nest our app within an existing longitudinal study. And what that's allowed us to do is to make really interesting comparisons with people who are taking part in the app and actually looking at compared to people who we know already would participate in that research. And that's given us some really interesting insight into how and why people take part, because we've also paired that with several dozen hours of qualitative interviews where we've understood both from people who wanted to take part in the research and who didn't about what we can do to facilitate that. And we've published this piece in JMIR, and we've now got a series of recommendations that we've shared and would welcome feedback and comments on about what we think needs to be done to make this more accessible. But that's one example, of how we're trying to scrutinize all the aspects of the digital interventions that we do and to publish that findings and to share that learning. And actually, this is kind of an overview of the overall process that we do. And you can see through this, there are many different touch points of how we introduce science and rigor at every different stage. So all organizations will have some degree of change management and controls over it. The thing that we're really proud of is that actually, before we undergo any change whatsoever, we really try to scrutinize the evidence base underpinning it. So for example, we about 6 months ago were debating whether we should change one particular aspect of the visibility patients get of that data. And rather than having a discussion about, well, I think this and you think this and let's try it, before we even went into user testing, we did a literature review trying to identify who's done similar stuff and how can we synthesize that data. And we ended up synthesizing information from about 400 studies. And that then in turn informed the usability testing that we did. And that in turn informed whether or not we would go ahead with that change. And that's the level of detail that we try to do with embedding science at every stage of this design. And then there's the analysis that you do once your configuration's built and it's out there in the domain. I really like the WHO framework because it's a really great way of testing interventions at different stages of maturity, and it allows you to build on your intervention as you've gathered that data and you're scaling it more and more. And we do that in collaboration with all our partners, bringing together, for example, patient feedback and user data, then bringing together data on the analytics, then bringing to data processes of care, for example, what's happening to their outpatient activity, their inpatient activity, and then bringing in as well what clinical outcomes that we can get, both through clinically validated questionnaires or bespoke questionnaires that we've designed to calculate patient reported outcome measures, but also trying to collect some of those biomarkers that we do, whether it's through the device or through the phone itself. And in addition to that, what we're trying to do a lot more is to do secondary analyses, essentially looking at all the literature and all the evidence that's out there and working out not only where do we need to go next, but actually what are the innovations that we've seen elsewhere in the sector that we could potentially bring. So for example, when it comes to, say, asthma care, what's working and what's not when it comes to virtual asthma care. And so how can we build a configuration that is supported by the best degree of evidence across the entire industry? I'm really conscious of time, so I was going to take a stop there and take any questions, but just wanted to say it's a real pleasure to have the opportunity to present today. It's really great to support the event, and been really interesting seeing the speakers and the lineup over the conference so far. So thank you very much.
No, it's outstanding. And again, congratulations on all the success that you've had in the UK, and certainly just to make the HITLAB audience aware as well, that this is a platform that's seen tremendous success in the UK and is looking to have the same kind of impact in the US healthcare system. So if you are in a health plan or a hospital system and you're seeing how this can benefit you, please do link in directly with Arrash and just give him a shout. I mean, again, we're really trying to make sure that good technologies are being implemented across not just the US, but around the world. And we'd love to see Huma accelerate the adoption rate that they're seeing in the US. So it's not a 5 to 7 year build, it's a 1 to 3 year build. But again, Arrash, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And we'll have you back to have that brainstorming session around how to help this out and help you get going.
Thank you very much.
So again, Dr. Yassaee with the unicorn Huma. And again, I would recommend that if you're on the program, please do link in and get to know them, get to know him a little bit better. Very exceptional and really creating some nice value in the ecosystem, and would love to see their the development and their adoption rates kick up to another level completely.